Hi there. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm your host, Ryan Vanderhei, and I've learned some of my most valuable life lessons from my favorite TV shows and movies. Sure, these works about entertain us, offer us an escape, and even tap into our emotions. But there's one E that's often overlooked, Joe.
Ryan, that is educational. If viewed from a different perspective, these stories and their characters can help us to learn and develop as human beings. I'm your co-host, Joe Parente, and it's our mission with this podcast to share these unique perspectives with you so that you can grow from the show.
Love that. The topic of today's discussion, the 2018 film Beautiful Boy and the Overbearing Power of Love. As always, there will be spoilers ahead, so please proceed with caution. But if you haven't seen this movie by now, you're sorely missing out on a gem, and I highly recommend you go watch it and come back. Be sure to leave a like, rating, or review wherever it is that you listen, as it really helps the show, people. Shall we begin?
We shall begin.
Let's do it.
The answers that you're looking for are lying just beyond the frame.
So I want to have a disclaimer at the top of this episode.
Okay.
So before we begin, I wanted to sort of let people know that Beautiful Boy is based on a true story of a real relationship between a real father and son. And that our opinions expressed in this episode are based solely upon the information we're given from the film. We don't know these two people personally. I have not read their books. I am just basing what I'm talking about completely off of the film itself. So just to give you a disclaimer at the top.
Okay, then.
So why don't we dive in, shall we, into A Beautiful Boy.
What a movie.
So this was the second time I had seen this film. I saw it when it first came out, sort of when it was on its awards run at the time. It was getting a lot of love for Timmy's performance, et cetera, et cetera.
Timothy Chalamet is who you're talking
Timothy
about.
Chalamet,
Yeah.
yes. And so this is the second time I'm seeing it. And the first time I saw it, I really thought that it was a movie just about predominantly this relationship between a child that's an addict and the parent that's coping with that. That's kind of what I felt the movie was about. And certainly on the surface, it absolutely is that. But then the second time I watched it, I realized that this is a movie about how heavy love can be, how the weight that love can have to it, and how sometimes the love can actually be a little bit too heavy for someone to bear, a little bit too much for them to carry. And as I feel that the love that David had for his son Nick was a little bit too much for Nick to hold in his hands. So with that in mind, and with that being said, Joe, have you yourself in your life ever experienced a kind of love that was maybe a little bit overbearing at times? Or have you yourself been the overbearer in this case?
I think the long answer is no.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
So I'll give a
Tell
more
me more,
qualified
please.
answer.
Okay.
One of the things, just backtracking to what you were saying just now about the Steve Carell character, Steve Carell playing the father.
Yes. David Sheff.
I think that David's love for his son clashed with his son's sense of shame. And I think that's part of what made that love heavy.
Yeah.
Was that he was so riddled with shame, and his father's love just amplified it.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean by like a smothering effect to a degree, or almost a pushing away kind of an effect.
And it should be worth noting that this doesn't have to be a conscious decision. Oftentimes it's not.
I don't think that I agree with you
With
completely.
the purest of intentions. I don't think David had
Completely
an
agree.
impure bone in his body.
Totally.
Every move he made was for his son, the love that he had for his son.
Here's what I agreed. Here's what I will say, that I haven't felt that kind of oppressive love, if you will, but I've actually felt love from people that was almost too much for me to take.
Yeah.
It was almost too much to take.
And what a beautiful thing that is. Thank God for that.
You know what a bizarre thing that is too, that it's almost hard. It was hard for me to accept.
Yeah.
That much love.
Yeah. It's a question of, do I even deserve this kind of love?
Yeah, exactly.
This is so profound. It's so much. Am I worthy? And I think that's a lot of what Nic felt. And that's, like you said, what kind of was like gasoline on the flame.
It was. And so the texture of what I have felt was nothing like what would appear to be an overbearing father or overbearing whatever.
Yeah.
And I have not done that with anyone either.
Okay.
But I have just felt love that was so immense that I did not feel. Unfortunately, I did not feel worthy.
Sure.
To your point. And that was strange how it can be hard to take love.
Yeah, it's confusing.
But that is part of the human condition.
That's right.
Talk about confusing.
We all want to be loved.
Yeah, and yet
sometimes there's a limit to that.
Yeah,
it becomes
love me, but not that much.
yeah, please. A normal amount. All right, I can only take so much. So similar to that, I felt I really struggled with trying to find my own personal connection to this, because I don't think, at least in the similar context and the texture, like you said, to what this film represents, I haven't really felt that either. But I did think about one specific connection that I had in my life.
Okay.
So when I was in my late teens, I was in a long-term relationship with a girl. This girl did not have a close relationship with her father.
Okay.
He was a much, much older man and kind of left the family high and dry, left her mother out to dry, and she basically had a single mother that raised both her and her brother. I think that from this, and we had conversations about this at the time, but because of this experience, she was kind of looking for somebody to kind of save the day. She was kind of looking for a way out. She was kind of looking for somebody that was going to, a positive male influence or some sort of thing to like latch on to. And I think that manifested itself in a lot of the ways she handled relationships. Because when we were together, the only way to put it is she gave herself over to me completely. And it was almost like a loss of self. To an unhealthy degree. She kind of lost who she was in the pursuit of trying to be someone that she thought I wanted. So she started to take interest in all the things I had interest in. She left all her own hobbies and interests behind and just kind of became,
oh, wow.
What will Ryan like? Oh, he's into this? Okay, I'll be into that. I'll be into that. And it was just kind of, she lost who she was. She lost all sense of herself. And so every second wanting to be together, stay together, come visit. It was just like every second trying to be with me, trying to latch on and hold on to this love. But what that did is it pushed me away.
Yeah.
Because it was overbearing. I was smothered. It was too much. I had nowhere to put it. It was overbearing. That's really the only word that really describes how I felt. It was too much for me to handle. Ultimately, the relationship didn't work out because of this.
Sure.
It just pushed me further and further away. But I think that she, again, pure intentions, nothing malicious, not a evil bone in the body, but just the circumstance that she had been in and the way that she had felt about relationships and love made and manifested itself in this overbearing, overpouring of oneself into another. And that was kind of, as I was thinking about my life, the closest I could get to kind of understanding how love can be overbearing and smothering. So that's kind of, again, I don't really have something to relate to specifically, but that gets me a little bit close to
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about David and Nick, shall we?
Yeah,
let's
let's
talk
do
about
that.
their story.
Yeah.
So just to recap the film, if you haven't seen it in a while, or if you haven't seen it yet, David Sheff, played brilliantly by Steve Carell,
So
is
good.
a magazine writer in Northern California, the burbs of San Francisco,
Yeah, they were in Marin County.
in a
Yeah, that's where that was shot.
beautiful house.
Oh, you haven't been to Marin County yet?
I don't think, have we? No.
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 That's what it looks like, man. I could tell that was
man.
really Marin County.
God, it was
I had to,
gorgeous.
because I was watching the movie, and I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, and I lived in Marin for a while.
Uh-huh.
So I'm watching this thinking, that's actually Marin County. I mean, and then I looked up to see the location, and
Sure.
it is. You got to go.
Yeah,
it is a beautiful
clearly.
part of the world.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And he and David has a teenage son named Nick Sheff, played by Timothy Chalamet.
That kid will never make it in this business.
Gonna have to give me something better than that, buddy. And the two of them develop a really close bond when Nick is young. Despite David and Nick's mother, Vicky, played by Amy Ryan, splitting, David maintains this strong bond with his son. As Nick grows into his late teenage years, however, he starts to experiment with drugs, like marijuana, starts out harmless, right? Just a little bit of plants and trees here.
Oh, it's the gateway drug.
Well, it was.
It was for him.
Definitely was. He likes what he feels, particularly the escape from
God,
reality.
could I relate?
Right? He has that conversation, the beautiful conversation with his dad against the car. They're sharing a joint after graduation.
Yeah.
And he's like, I experimented with drugs too in my day, like they kind of find some common ground and they relate over it. And then Nick says, I just love how I forget all the bullshit of life. And then David's kind of like,
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Wait a minute.
And this eventually spirals into him becoming addicted to drugs like meth and heroin. The addiction, the rehabs, the relapses, and so on and so forth start to create a friction between Nick and David, and it really tests their relationship. And we kind of watch that unfold throughout the film. So our first scene that we're going to dive into here is the diner scene. So at this point in the film, David and Nick meet up at a diner, which we see is a special place for the two of them. It's a place that they've shared memories before. Nick comes in even and says, wow, this place hasn't changed a bit, has it?
And this is after Nick has already been an addict.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. So Nick has been away from the family for a while due to his relapse in college, where he came back, stole some money from his younger brother out of like his piggy bank.
$8.
$8, hey, it's going missing. And then just kind of, there's some friction there, obviously. His dad calls him on it, blah, blah, blah. So Nick arrives to the diner and David is already there. And we immediately see he's visibly high. Before he's even in, we see him from outside the window. We just know, he's high right now. And he just literally one of the first things that comes out of his mouth, he asks his dad for money.
Yep.
Hey, I just need a few $100.
Yep.
And his dad says no. And this kind of escalates until Nick finally says to his dad, and I quote, I understand why I do things. It doesn't make me any different, all right? I'm attracted to craziness, and you're just embarrassed because I was like this amazing thing, like your special creation or something, and you don't like who I am now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets you right in the heart.
It
tugs
sure
right
does.
on your heartstrings, because you can see not only how hard and difficult it is for Nick to say that to his father, but also how profoundly difficult it is for David to see his son this way, to not recognize someone. We see when he first is sitting down before Nick arrives, he has a flashback to when Nick was really young, and they have this like playful little Star Trek, speaking to him.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's like this beautiful, heartwarming moment.
Yep.
And we know that that's who David wants to see at the other side of the booth. He wants his beautiful boy back, to call the name of the film. And it's so heartbreaking to see how the amount of love that he has for his son,
Mm-hmm.
and not recognizing someone is so profound.
And that there's nothing he can do about it either.
Yes, exactly.
And giving money will just make it worse.
I thought I wanted to talk about the scene in particular because I felt like this was the first instance we get of maybe why Nic feels the way he does. This is the first that he kind of divulges his real raw feelings and emotions. He lays it out to his dad. There's no sugarcoating. There's no, because when he first comes in, it's like, oh yeah, I've been doing well. I got 5 days sober. Like it's kind of all it's all a lie. It's all he's putting on a face. And then this is raw. It's real. It's emotional. It's grounded. It's you know what, Dad? To tell you the truth, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is what's happening with me. He's ashamed of himself. He's embarrassed even.
God, to hear him say that, the shame he felt. Oh.
And just that line of he felt like he couldn't live up to this amazing thing, this special creation that his dad has in his mind of like who he is.
Yeah.
God, what a heartbreaker, man. And I relate. I realized in hindsight, not at the time when I was watching the film, but when I was putting together my notes for this, I relate to Nic entirely in this moment.
Me too.
Because I've felt the exact same way towards my own dad. Again, my dad, wonderful, wonderful man, but he's a very high-performing, successful, smart, hardworking guy. And
we've talked about our dads.
Without saying anything, he never directly said to me, I expect you to be, you know what I mean? There was never any of that, but it was just subconsciously in me built sort of this extremely high bar, extremely high expectation to live up to, that even till now, even to this day, I struggle to let him down. It's like one of my worst fears in life is letting my father down, just because of this, of the nature of our relationship and the nature of who he is as a person. Again, it's got nothing to do with him.
Right.
He's a lovely man, and he's done right by me more times than I can count. But when you have a parent, again, I'm speaking from personal experience, just me, it sets a really high bar that I feel like I need to live up to. So then what that creates is an anxiety and a stress and a pressure.
Oh, yeah.
And that so much so that even sometimes when the phone rings, I get anxious. When my dad pops up, I get anxious because I feel like I have to let me put my story together. Wow. What am I going to say? Okay, things have been going great at work. I can't tell my dad a bad thing. I can't. I physically am incapable of the words coming out of my mouth because I feel like he's done so well in life and he's so accomplished and smart that I need to also be that.
It's a really good thing you don't have the propensity towards addiction.
Sure.
Because you have all the makings of an excellent addict. You really do.
I
think you'd be very devout. I think you'd be very focused.
Yeah.
I think you'd be a real burgeoning drug addict if you were so inclined.
Yes, thank God for that. I don't have addictive personality.
And I don't either. And boy, did I think about that a lot with this movie because I could relate to a ton of it. I could also relate to, look, quite frankly, and for anybody, my relatives, whatever, listening, I love to alter my consciousness. I really do, and how I do it has changed over the years, and I'm now much more safe and sane with it, and I do it more now as like an exploration, not just like we're gonna have a good time kind of thing. But I can understand. I still have the drive to check out to a degree. I still have the drive to numb things a bit, escape a bit. And I'm just much more cognizant of it now, but I had a massive rebel yell, particularly aimed at, it was a big FU towards my dad. So the car crashes I had and how poorly I did in school and all that kind of stuff was aimed really pretty much at one person.
Yeah.
And did my dad love me? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my dad was also very bright and high functioning and had very high standards like yours. Ryan and I have talked about this before. The real similarity there. And I watched this movie thinking, anything that wanted to take credit for it, that I don't have that hook of addiction in me.
Yeah.
Oof. We dodged bullets there, man.
Yeah, we did. We
You
really
know?
did. That's fascinating. Yeah, that we both kind of could relate to this character. Not so much as in, being in the spiral of addiction and rehab and all that, the surface level things that he's experiencing, but the deeper sort of meaning behind why he was the way he was and what drove him to be that way. Because look, he kind of had the perfect life. Outside of his parents
certain
being
sense,
split.
Yeah.
Beautiful home.
Yeah.
Showered with love and compassion. Both parents love him to pieces.
Even the stepmom too.
Stepmom would give him the shirt off their backs.
Yeah. He had half brothers half brother, half sister that he loved.
He's been given every opportunity. Yeah. Anything you need at any point. Most people would absolutely fucking kill.
Yeah.
To be in those shoes.
Yeah.
But I think that and me again, what we just discussed, me and you both can relate to that completely. It kind of manifested itself in I don't know that I'm enough. I don't know that I can live up to this beautiful life that you have. I don't think I'm not the one, And I just thought this scene absolutely wonderfully illustrated that.
So well. That was hard to watch.
And really played wonderfully by both parties, Timothy and Steve.
Those guys together, I love both of them individually. Ryan and I talk about the fact that Timothy Chalamet should really give some of his talent away to the rest of the planet because he's got so much wrapped up into one human being.
Yeah, just pepper that along the rest of us.
And Steve Carell too. I mean, I can imagine. They had such great chemistry on camera. I don't know how they probably couldn't have loved each other off camera.
Sure.
The way these guys played their roles was so incredibly moving. Lots of tears.
Couldn't agree more. You and me both. So before we get into scene number 2, let's bad guy break it.
Let's do this.
Let's see if we can get you to here. Let's see if we can get you this time. You stumped me. Let's see if I can stump you.
Yeah, it's too easy, though. That's the problem.
So, in relation to this film a little bit,
okay,
the year that this film came out is 1960.
Wow.
The genre, psychological horror. The setting, 1960s California. And the actor, Anthony Perkins.
The shower scene.
Yeah.
I guess I got it. Okay.
So if you don't know by now, the movie and character we're talking about is Norman Bates from Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock. I chose Norman.
Good choice.
Because boy, does he have this weird ass, deep, obsessive, overbearing love for his mother.
Weird ass. I think those were Alfred Hitchcock's words.
Yeah. It fully cements itself in the category of extremely unsettling and utterly, ultimately tragic. But I thought, man, what a
great bad guy.
Well
done.
What a great illustration of
well done.
Yeah, the overbearing power of love. Man.
Well,
it could go a little bit too far.
But we don't know that what she was showing was love.
I'm talking about him. I'm talking about Norman Bates.
Oh, his.
Yeah, it's this weird,
I don't know that
obsessive,
that was love either, though.
Deep,
that was just straight up mental illness.
Icky. It was just icky stuff, man.
What a great movie that was, though.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh my God,
that's a classic.
The last time I saw it was about 10 years ago, and I was stunned at how well it held up.
Oh,
and how it still freaked me out.
100%.
God,
it's an absolute classic. Have you seen Bates Motel, the television series?
I saw only a few episodes, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, because that's kind of like a deeper exploration of Norman and
God,
his
I need
mother.
to go back to that, or should I? Do you recommend it?
I just I can't get enough of Farmiga.
Oh,
is the last name.
Yeah.
Vera?
Vera.
Is it Vera Farmiga?
Yeah, Vera Farmiga.
Plays
very
the
well
mother.
done.
And she is just
She's so good.
knockout in that.
She's so good.
So,
I need to go back to that. Thank you for reminding me.
yes, I could watch her any and all day.
Yeah. Agreed.
So to get back to our movie here, Beautiful Boy,
Okay.
the second scene I want to talk about is heartbreaking as well. Pretty much I could probably just pick out any scene from this movie and it'd be heartbreaking. So that doesn't give you a lot.
Totally true.
That doesn't give you a lot of context here. But the scene I'm talking about is the car chase scene. So Joe is sort of squirming in his seat right now, if you're listening and not watching. But Nick comes back later on in the film and brings his girlfriend with.
Can we preempt that by saying he knows no one's at the house?
Yes,
he
absolutely.
is called ahead of time to make sure.
Yes, so he calls, nobody answers. He brings his girlfriend with him back to his dad's place when the family isn't home. They literally break in because the locks are different and gather a bunch of his things. They're kind of trying to take some things for wherever they are. And the family comes home unexpectedly. And Nick freaks out, grabs his girlfriend and stuff, and they sneak out of the back. And then I think it's one of the kids.
It's one of his stepbrother.
One of his stepbrothers.
Hey, there goes Nick.
I think I saw Nick running out. And then so obviously, of course, David and his wife run out and are kind of looking for him. And Nick drives away. He sees his dad. He's like, oh, shit.
Yep.
And they start driving away. Yep. Well, the stepmother, played beautifully by Maura Tierney.
She's so good.
So good in this. Jumps into the family minivan and starts chasing him down. And she keeps getting close to Nick, but then his car starts to pull away, and then she gets close and his car pulls away, and they're kind of off-road and this and that. And this happens a few times until she finally pulls over after realizing, we can see it on her face, what the hell am I doing right now?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I thought, man, this entire scene was so representative and metaphorical to the want and the need that you have to help someone you love and constantly chasing after them and them being just out of reach. That horrible feeling of trying to help someone but not really knowing what to do or how to do it. You just do it. It's sort of like built into us as human beings. It's innate. It's not really taught. It's something that just happens, that you want to fight for someone you love. You care about them, and it's just in your nature to try to help them, to try to fight for them, to try to go after them, to try to save them.
Yep.
And we see that in many different instances throughout the film. But this scene in particular, I thought really was a great metaphor for that.
And it was the stepmom who was the first one to realize we can't help him.
Yes.
She had to help her. She wanted to help David, her husband, realize, David, you got to just let it go.
Right.
You got to let it go. You got to let him go.
And there's a different, we'll just speak on it really briefly, where he's packing up to go to help his son. And she comes into the room and she's like, don't you think this is absolutely insane or like ridiculous? And he's like, yes, of course it's ridiculous. But what am I going to do? He's my son.
That's right.
And so she's kind of the first, and we see it here that she realizes it. She's first of all, she played it beautifully. She's the tears as she's driving and she's wiping them away and she's just trying to concentrate. And then again, she just pulls over at some point and is just like,
realizing the sheer futility of it.
What am I doing here? The conscious overrode the subconscious. Subconsciously, you just fight for the people you love. You just do it. You can't see them on the ground. You have to help them up.
Well, right. Unless they get to a certain age and they're not going to help themselves.
You get to a certain point where you realize that there's nothing that I can do is going to change anything.
Exactly.
The ball's in their court.
I don't know if I'll be able to really go into this for time's sake, but one of my best friends I grew up with ended up living across the street from each other. He had a brother who started a heroin addiction in high school.
Mm.
And Brian had been in and out of rehab twice by the time he was 20. And when he was not on heroin, he was just crushing life. He is incredibly, and I say is because this story has a very good ending, Brian is incredibly intelligent, relates to people incredibly well. Put him in any room with any kind of people, he can do it. But boy, does he have the addiction monkey on his back. And there was a point where his mother had to change the locks on the house because Brian would come in at night and steal things and sell them for drugs.
Yeah.
And she had to completely cut him off. And I remember talking with her about it and talking about how it just ripped her heart out, that she couldn't do anything for her son.
Yeah.
And the best thing she could do was to cut him off.
Yeah. That's the only thing that's going to help him.
He used to call, and if I remember this correctly, they would just sit on the phone. They wouldn't even talk. She knew it was Brian. She'd talk to him a little bit, but they'd just sit there, just on the phone. Brian has been clean now for, I think, when I talked to him over the holidays, 28 years now.
Wow. Congratulations.
And he's just crushed it financially. And
That's amazing.
He's got a beautiful son who does not have the addiction monkey on his back.
Thank God for that.
And his kid's just amazing. And Brian's life story should be a movie. But I could really relate to watching Steve Carell, watching the parents go through the pain of not being able to help and then realizing all they can do is actually disengage.
Yeah.
And let the son, in this case, the son, make the decision. When are they going to stick up for themselves?
Yeah.
When are they going to decide that they've had enough?
You can't do it for him.
Can you imagine?
First of all, such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And congratulations to your friend.
It's amazing.
That's really profound.
He's one of the few good stories to come out of such addiction, too.
Sure, absolutely. I have personal experiences with friends of my own in that setting as well. And I can't imagine being the parent on the other end of that and having to again have that, because again, it's built into the core of your being and your nature to do everything in your power to not give up on your child and to always be there, and that's always going to be your fight. So you have to push back against that. It's almost like that's going to happen. You're going to want to fight. And you have to push that down.
Can't imagine what that's like.
And that's why movies like this exist, why David and Nick told their story.
Yeah.
Because I think they knew the profound effect it could have. And so I just thought that was such a beautiful film or a beautiful scene that illustrated that.
Absolutely.
Metaphorically with the car chase.
Yeah.
So why don't we dump off with a little fun fact and then we'll come back to our final scene, shall we?
Throw a fun fact at us.
So a fun fact about this film. At one point during development, Cameron Crowe was attached to direct. That, if you do not know, was the director of Almost Famous, Jerry Maguire, Vanilla Sky, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Wahlberg was attached to star as David instead of Steve Carell.
Okay.
And Will Poulter was being eyed at the time to play Nick.
Would have been a very different movie.
Timothy Chalamet.
I would like to see that movie.
Okay.
Because I think it would be really interesting.
That makes one of us. Listen.
I just want to see what they do with it.
Sure. I would be interested to see how it would turn out in an alternate universe. No. Maybe that's what AI can be used for. It can give us like alternate versions of like, what if?
Look, I'm not saying I wish that were the movie that was made. I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
But just if you could make this one with those guys, like really?
Yeah. Listen, I think it works out for 2 out of 3 of those people.
Agreed.
There's one person there that I'm like, I don't know. And maybe that's unfair. Yeah. Maybe that's unfair. That's unfair to Mark Wahlberg to say such a thing. I shouldn't say that.
I was going to say to Mark,
crush it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
He might. He might have.
Hey, I respect it.
We just know Steve Carell has a big freaking heart.
Yeah, he does, man. I love seeing when comedic actors can pull drama like it's their fucking nature, man. Like it's all they've ever done. Like they can just jump into it.
Like,
Jack Black,
Good Will
Robin
Hunting,
Williams,
Robin Williams,
so many over the years.
his best role by far.
Steve
to me.
Carell in this, Steve Carell in Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, love that movie.
Absolutely brilliant.
Agreed.
But then he can step into the office and knock out a comedic scene like nobody's business.
Yeah.
That's a talented person.
Yeah, he's a pretty talented. Those two guys alone, Timothy Chalamet and Steve Carell. My God,
heck of a combo here. So our final scene we're going to talk about here is the scene that got me. It got me the first time around. It got me the second time around. It pulls at the heartstrings. But we're calling back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago about the subconscious versus conscious. Nick, later in the film, after the car chase, his girlfriend ODs in the car. He's got to give her CPR. She comes back, but he's already called the ambulance. The ambulance arrives, takes her away. He's left out in the cold and the rain. He's at his most desperate. And he calls his dad, having just broke in and ran away. Calls his dad. Oh my God, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
And he says to him, I need your help. I think I just need to come home. I don't need, just don't make me go to rehab. Like, I just need to be.
I just want to be around you.
I just
saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
And David says, no,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. And he says, call your sponsor. And then Nick says, I don't want to talk to my sponsor. I want to talk to you. And then at one point during the conversation, David literally says to his son, I can't help you. And I think the most important part about this scene is that despite being rejected by his father, to leave the phone call, his dad says, I love you. And Nick could have said any amount of things. He could have, no, wait, don't go. He could have said anything. But he says, I love you too. And then he hangs up. And we see David sort of break down because he did what he probably thought he never was capable of doing, and that was letting go. That was doing, again, what is the only thing he can do for him now. He's done it all. He's exhausted all of his resources and time and effort and energy, and he's put everything he has into this, and the only thing that he has left is to let him go.
That's right. He even took the pictures of him down in his study.
He took the pictures of him off the wall. It was kind of like, I've done all I can. There's nothing I can do for you now.
I can't even imagine. Well, first of all, again, Ryan and I don't have kids, so there is an abstraction there, but we are human beings with feelings, and to think about someone you love that much and they're still on the planet and they're reaching out to you, please help me. And you know that the best thing you can do is to say no. Can't wrap my head around that.
Can't imagine. I don't know that I'd be strong enough to do it. I really don't.
You would have to have been pushed as far as David had been pushed.
Sure, that's a great point. We'd seen the lengths that he went to.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally did math himself to try to understand.
That's right. That's right.
The profound amount of love someone has for another human being to literally do math, to go on the street and talk to addicts, to go to doctors, to doing, which was a brilliant, call to him being a magazine writer. That's what he does.
That's right.
He does research.
That's right.
That's part of his job. So that's just built into him. And so to go to that length for someone, wow.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow.
I would love to talk to the real David to hear about when he took the meth. There had to be a point where he realized it's not just about the drugs. It's not. Yes, it is a very addictive drug with really strong hooks in it. But if you don't have the receptors in a way inside of you emotionally for those hooks, it's not going to have that same pull.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that helped him see it's not the drugs.
Right.
It is and it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Be-
think
yeah.
he got a little bit of that too with the Notebook.
Yes. Oh, that
We see when he
Notebook.
finds the Notebook in his son's room, in Nick's room, and he starts sifting through it, and there's kind of all these confessions
And the darkness of it.
darkness of like how I feel, and like I can't live up to this.
And notice that notebook was all in black and white. And earlier, Nick had said that the drugs add Technicolor to his life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great pull. That's a great point. You're right.
And how scary to think that he felt like that's the only way I can get color in my life is by taking these drugs. Again, I can understand from a recreational, I don't have that addiction, but I can understand the kind of light show and the
vibrance.
The vibrance of it. That's a good way to put it. But to feel that is your only source of it.
Yeah.
Is that hurts. It just hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I heard when I was looking through the trivia to find a fun fact, I heard that Timothy had a doctor on set present at all times to be as authentic to an addict that he could be. Basically like having a speech pathologist on there to make sure your cadence is correct. It's like he had someone there at all times present, so that he was bringing it to life. Because, God, the scene where he goes back to the girl's place, I think it's the first girl, not the girlfriend that ODs. It was the first girl. And they do I think it was heroin.
Mm-hmm. It was heroin, yeah.
You could see the relief. You could see the shoulders drop. You could see it on his face. You could see how profound that was affecting him. And it was like, oh yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
And you can understand, again, being an empathetic human being, why you would desire that and why you would go back and why it would become addictive.
Absolutely. But
it totally makes sense.
And it also makes sense that how his proclivities, his orientation towards life, this is where I just interrupted myself, but the argument of like a gateway drug. Look, it is for people who are going to go down that hallway anyway.
Correct.
It's not as though they don't have that within them. They don't have these issues within them, and they smoke marijuana. It's like, well, I've got to do heroin next. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yes,
and this movie, I think, really illustrates that point.
It's subjective. Yeah. I mean, I've smoked a ton of weed and I've never done any hard drugs before.
Me either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the person. Again, me and you talk about it. We don't have that addict monkey on our back. People that do, sure.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a gateway drug. It's
for
just,
sure.
Oh, this feels good.
Yeah, there's got to be something that's going to make me feel better.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we really see that in this film, like you said. This scene just broke me, man. This broke my heart to know that he knew that the best thing, like we said, for Nick might be this rejection. And by Nick's response, I felt that he understood.
He did.
He got
the fact
it.
that he, like you said, the fact that he said, "I love you too," to his dad.
He got it.
Yeah.
He knows. He's not a stupid kid. He was
No,
a smart kid. He was
that's
a bright
right.
kid. And so even though his father rejected him, he gets it. He's like, you know what? I understand.
And didn't you take that as a sign of hope? As someone viewing that movie, that kid is still in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The beautiful boy
absolutely.
is still in there.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So let's give some recommendations, shall we, before we wrap
do
things up here. So 5 films. If you liked the movie Beautiful Boy starring Timothée Chalamet, you want to see 5 more like it, you can watch these 5 streaming now. The first, Requiem for a Dream.
So great.
2000 film starring Jared Leto. You can watch that on
Tubi.
Tubi.
Ellen Bernstein.
And Ellen Bernstein. Fantastic.
She was incredible.
The second, Girl Interrupted. The 1999 film starring Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie. You can watch that on Amazon Prime. The third, The Basketball Diaries. 1995 film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And you can watch that on Amazon Prime. The fourth, Half Nelson. the 2006 film starring Ryan Gosling. You can watch that right now on
That
Peacock.
guy might make it.
That guy might do something.
He might.
Watch that?
He's one to watch.
He's got a little bit of pep in his step,
Yeah.
that one. Somebody else that could share some of the
Oh my God.
talent with the rest of
Spread
us.
it around, dude. Don't be so selfish.
And then the final film, Honey Boy, the
not seen that
2019
one.
film starring Shia LaBeouf, and that's on Amazon Prime. That's a really unique film because it's a story about Shia's life, and he plays his father.
Oh,
And it's like a very interesting relationship between the two of them. Highly
missed
recommend
that.
Honey
Okay.
Boy. So let's recap this film, shall we?
Okay.
So what did we
I'll
learn
let
from
you do it.
watching Beautiful Boy, Joe?
Tell me, Ryan.
That sometimes love can be overbearing, without knowing it. And with the best of intentions, the love that we have for another human being can be quite heavy for them to carry. There's probably a balance where the amount of love that we have for someone does not outweigh their ability to handle it. Every person and every relationship is different, and so too will be that balance. And at the end of the day, love might be the most addicting drug of all.
You go. You go.
I could not resist, damn it.
You didn't.
I didn't.
Good for you.
Thank you
love it.
so much for joining us here again
Yeah.
for another episode. We just hit 27. This will be episode
Fantastic.
27.
Right on.
I'm really excited about
Interesting number.
that. We'll have to do something special for 50.
Okay.
We'll have to figure out
Yes, we will.
what movie are we going to pick for 50? That's the question.
Okay.
We'll start brainstorming now. That'll be in a couple of months, I guess. Yeah, that's a good one. And as always, you're the main character in your own life, the person listening. So don't be afraid to take a step back.
Just to be clear.
Just to be clear here, I'm talking to you. And take a look at the bigger picture, because sometimes the answers that you have been looking for are lying just beyond the frame. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.